Get your ghetto ass to the back where you belong. Sarah Mitchell's voice dripped with contempt as she blocked Damon Washington from seat 2B. Her smile was pure malice. There's been a mistake, Damon said quietly, extending his boarding pass. Bag search. Now. Sarah grabbed his carry-on and dumped everything onto the aisle. Prescription bottles scattered, family photos spread across the floor, confidential documents fanned out like fallen cards. She picked through his belongings, holding up each item. Fake paperwork, probably stolen. When Damon knelt to collect his scattered possessions, her heel pressed down on his hand. Sharp pain shot through his fingers. Don't touch anything until security arrives. Phones lifted throughout first class. Red recording lights blinked. Someone was live streaming his humiliation. Damon gathered trampled photos of his daughter's graduation, his face calm but his jaw set tight. Have you ever been judged so quickly that people destroyed their own lives trying to destroy yours? 6:47 p.m. 10 minutes to takeoff. The digital departure board cast an ominous glow. Flight 447, departure. 6:57 p.m. Red numbers counting down like a timer on a bomb. Brad Henderson, a stocky man in his 50s wearing a Rolex that caught the gate lights, pulled out his iPhone. The live stream was already running. Folks, you're witnessing something incredible here. Airline security dealing with what appears to be a gatecrasher in real time. His voice carried that entitled confidence that came with platinum frequent flyer status. Other passengers turned their heads, phones emerging like weapons. I fly this route every month for business, Brad announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. That's my seat, 2B. I specifically request it every time. This guy probably bought some fake ticket off Craigslist or something. Sarah Mitchell's badge gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. She held Damon's boarding pass like contaminated evidence, refusing to scan the barcode properly. Her eyes barely grazed the document. Sir, I'm going to need to see all your documentation again, she said with theatrical authority. This boarding pass seems highly irregular. The system isn't recognizing it properly. Here's my boarding pass, my photo ID, and my... Damon's voice remained steady, controlled. No, we'll sort this out at the gate desk, Sarah cut him off sharply. Her radio crackled as she pressed the button. Gate 12 to security. We need assistance with a boarding discrepancy, possible fraudulent documentation. The words fraudulent documentation rippled through the boarding area like electricity. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. More phones appeared. Brad's live stream viewer count climbed steadily. 47, 89, 156, 203 viewers. The chat exploded with comments, most making harsh assumptions based solely on what they were seeing through his camera lens. Can't believe this is happening on my flight, someone muttered behind them. Should have checked his ticket at the counter, another passenger whispered. Damon moved deliberately, gathering his scattered belongings with precise movements. His prescription bottles, expensive medications with his full name clearly printed. Family photos showing him in graduation caps, business suits, formal events. One leather folder remained partially visible among the debris. Confidential, Meridian Board Meeting, Q4 Acquisition Strategy. The text was small, barely readable unless you looked closely. His phone buzzed insistently. The caller ID read, Board Assistant, Jennifer Mills. Then another call from CFO, Michael Torres. Each call Damon declined with a single swipe, his expression never changing. The leather portfolio he clutched was Italian-made, understated but unmistakably expensive. The kind of accessory that cost more than most people's monthly salary, but whispered wealth rather than shouted it. Final boarding call for Flight 447 to Chicago. All passengers should be aboard at this time, the gate agent's voice echoed through the terminal speakers. 6:49 p.m. 8 minutes remaining. Gate area security cameras positioned at 3 different angles captured every moment. The woman in seat 2A had her phone out, recording discreetly from inside the jet bridge. A teenager near the gate was filming everything for his TikTok account. The evidence was mounting from multiple sources. Sarah's radio crackled again. Her supervisor's voice was barely audible, but her body language showed growing uncertainty. She kept looking between Damon and the boarding pass, then at Brad, who was still narrating for his growing audience. "This is exactly the kind of situation that makes me grateful I pay for first-class service," Brad declared to his 267 viewers. "You pay premium prices, you expect premium treatment, not to deal with situations like this." The comments in his live stream were getting uglier by the minute. Screenshots were already being shared on Twitter. Someone had started a Reddit thread titled "Flight Drama, Fake First Class Ticket, 6:50 p.m., 7 minutes remaining." More passengers gathered at the gate, forming an impromptu audience. The boarding process had effectively stopped. Flight attendants from other gates were glancing over, some pulling out their own phones. Sarah's confidence was beginning to waver as she realized how much attention this was drawing. But with Brad's camera rolling and hundreds of people now watching online, backing down would be admitting she was wrong. The countdown continued. 7 minutes until scheduled departure. 7 minutes until everything changed. 6:50 p.m. 7 minutes to departure. Gate manager Jennifer Walsh's heels clicked against the terminal floor as she approached the commotion. Her badge read, "Operations Supervisor," in bold letters. Behind her, a TSA security officer followed, hand resting casually near his radio. "What seems to be the problem here?" Jennifer's voice carried the authority of 15 years in airline management. She looked at Sarah, then at Brad's still-rolling live stream, then finally at Damon. "Fraudulent boarding pass situation," Sarah explained quickly. "This passenger is attempting to board first class with what appears to be counterfeit documentation." Brad's viewer count had exploded, 1,247, 1,589, 2,103 viewers. His phone battery was at 67% and dropping. The chat was moving so fast he could barely read individual comments, but the tone was clear. Ugly assumptions filled the screen. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside for proper document verification," Jennifer said, gesturing toward a corner near the gate desk. "We need to run this through our fraud detection system." Other passengers streamed around them like water around a rock. Business travelers in expensive suits glanced over with mixtures of curiosity and annoyance. A family with small children hurried past, the mother pulling her kids closer. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking," the announcement crackled overhead. "We're currently experiencing a minor boarding delay. We'll have you airborne shortly." 6:51 p.m., 6 minutes remaining. The TSA officer stepped forward. Officer David Martinez, according to his name tag, was built like a linebacker. His presence immediately shifted the energy of the situation. "Is there a security concern here?" Martinez asked, his eyes scanning Damon from head to toe in that practiced way security personnel assessed threats. "Possible document fraud," Jennifer replied. "We're just being thorough." Brad continued his running commentary for his audience, now approaching 20,500 viewers. "Folks, this is getting serious. TSA is now involved. Oh, this guy must have really messed up to draw this much attention." Comments flooded in faster than he could read. "Call the police. Fake tickets are everywhere these days. Hope they arrest him. This is why I fly private." Screenshots from the live stream were already circulating on Twitter with hashtags like #Airline drama and #fake ticket. Someone had created a TikTok compilation video titled "First Class Fraud Caught Live." Damon remained perfectly calm, hands visible, voice steady. "I'd like to request that you actually scan my boarding pass through your system rather than just looking at it." "We'll determine the proper verification process," Jennifer snapped back. She was feeling the pressure now. Hundreds of people watching online, passengers backing up at the gate, the clock ticking toward departure. 6:52 p.m., 5 minutes remaining. Sir, I'm also going to need proof of income verification for a first-class ticket, Jennifer said, her voice growing more authoritative. Do you have documentation showing you can afford this fare level? The request was unprecedented. Other passengers looked shocked. The woman recording from seat 2A raised her eyebrows and adjusted her camera angle. Damon's phone buzzed again. This time it was Chairman Robert Sterling. Then, immediately after, Legal Counsel Patricia Hayes. Each call declined with a single swipe. That's an unusual request, Damon said quietly. I've never been asked to prove my income to board a flight I've already purchased. These are unusual circumstances, Jennifer replied. Given the concerns about document authenticity, we need to verify all aspects of your booking. 6:53 p.m. 4 minutes to departure, Officer Martinez's radio crackled. Unit 47, what's your status on the gate situation? Still assessing, Martinez replied. Possible fraudulent boarding documentation. Subject is cooperative, but situation is complex. The circle of staff around Damon had grown to 4 people. Sarah, Jennifer, Martinez, and now a second flight attendant who'd been called over from the aircraft. They formed an imposing wall of uniforms and authority. Brad's live stream hit 2,847 viewers. The viral momentum was building. News aggregation accounts on Twitter were picking up screenshots. Someone had posted the video to Reddit's r public freakout subreddit where it was gaining upvotes rapidly. This is insane, Brad narrated breathlessly. 4 staff members now, TSA involved. This guy really thought he could scam his way into first class and nobody would notice. Flight crew from other gates were openly staring now. Passengers waiting for different flights had their phones out. The teenager who'd been filming for TikTok was live streaming to his own audience of 400 followers. 6:54 p.m. 3 minutes to departure. We're going to need to call airport police for a full investigation, Jennifer announced. This has escalated beyond our standard procedures. The words airport police sent a visible shudder through the crowd. Several passengers stepped back. The family with children moved to a different gate area entirely. Damon looked at the 4 staff members surrounding him, then at Brad's camera, then at the dozens of other phones recording every moment. May I make one phone call before we proceed? He asked quietly. Sarah actually laughed. This isn't jail, sir. We're not required to give you a phone call. Jennifer nodded in agreement. You can make all the calls you want after airport police sort this out. Damon pulled out his phone anyway. The screen showed 17 missed calls from various contacts. He scrolled through his recent calls and selected one number. The phone rang once. It's Damon, he said simply. Flight 447, gate 12, yes, now. He hung up. 6:55 p.m., 2 minutes to departure. Within 30 seconds, Jennifer's radio exploded with urgent chatter. Her face went from confident authority to confused concern as she pressed the earpiece closer. Code 7. Passenger in question is... Wait. What? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Are you absolutely certain? Yes, sir. I understand. The radio conversation lasted exactly 43 seconds. When Jennifer looked up, her face had drained of all color. Damon remained perfectly calm, hands folded, waiting. I'll wait while you verify whatever you need to verify, he said quietly. The departure board still showed 2 minutes, but time had just run out for everyone else. 6:55 p.m., 2 minutes to departure. The radio static cut through the gate area like a blade. Jennifer's earpiece crackled with urgent voices from operations control, her supervisor, and what sounded like executive-level management all talking at once. Her face transformed in real time. Confident authority melted into confusion, then shock, then something approaching panic. She stepped away from the group, pressing the radio closer to her ear. Code 7 situation. Passenger identification confirmed. Oh my God. Yes, sir. Understood completely. Brad was still live streaming to 3,200 viewers, but he sensed the shift in energy. His running commentary became uncertain. "Something's changing here, folks. The gate manager looks like she just saw a ghost." Officer Martinez noticed it too. His hand moved away from his radio. His posture shifted from enforcement-ready to something more cautious. Jennifer approached Damon with completely different body language. Her shoulders had dropped. Her voice became whisper-quiet, almost pleading. Sir, I think there may have been a misunderstanding," she said, trying to pull him aside discreetly. "Perhaps we could resolve this privately." But Damon's voice cut clear across the gate area. "I'd prefer to handle this publicly since it started publicly." Every phone camera swung toward him. Brad's live stream chat exploded with speculation. The woman in seat 2A leaned forward, recording everything. 6:56 p.m. 1 minute to departure. Damon opened his leather portfolio with deliberate precision. The movement was so calm, so controlled, that it commanded absolute attention from everyone within 30 feet. He withdrew a business card, simple, elegant, expensive cardstock. He held it at eye level where the cameras could focus. The text was clear. Damon Washington, Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Airlines Group. A second document emerged, corporate letterhead visible at the top. The header read, "Confidential, merger acquisition proposal, Skyward Airlines, $2.3 billion. His phone screen lit up with an incoming call. "Board Chairman Robert Sterling." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer's face went completely white. She actually stumbled backward, reaching for the gate desk to steady herself. Sarah, the flight attendant's mouth fell open. Her hands began trembling. Brad's live stream chat went absolutely insane. "Wait, what? Is this real? Someone Google him now. Oh, sock, they're so dead. Meridian is huge. This guy owns airlines." Officer Martinez immediately stepped back, his hands raised slightly in a gesture of non-confrontation. "Sir, I apologize for any confusion." 6:57 p.m. Scheduled departure time. Brad's phone was shaking in his hands. His 3,847 viewers were fact-checking in real time. Google searches were happening live in the chat. Wikipedia links were being shared. News articles about Meridian Airlines Group were flooding the comments. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brad's voice had changed completely. The entitled confidence was gone, replaced by something approaching terror. I think we may have made a mistake here." Damon's voice remained perfectly calm, but it now carried unmistakable authority. "I was flying to Chicago to finalize Skyward Airlines' acquisition. I wanted to experience your customer service firsthand before signing the papers." Jennifer was now visibly shaking. "Mr. Washington, we had no idea. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." "That was precisely the point," Damon replied. "Now I know exactly what kind of service Skyward Airlines provides to customers who don't look like they belong in first class." Sarah tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route. The departure board still showed Flight 447, but the status had changed from boarding to delayed. 6:58 p.m. 1 minute past departure. Brad's live stream had hit 4,200 viewers. The story was already trending on Twitter. Hashtag Skyward Airlines was becoming a hashtag. Screenshots were spreading across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. But Damon wasn't finished. He held up his phone, showing the screen to the cameras. 17 missed calls from board members, legal counsel, the CFO, and acquisition specialists. All declined while he was being humiliated on the floor of the gate area. "My board of directors has been trying to reach me," he said quietly. "They're probably wondering why the $2.3 billion Skyward acquisition has suddenly gone silent." The weight of those words hit everyone simultaneously. Jennifer grabbed her radio. "Operations, this is Gate 12. I need an immediate connection to CEO Robert Chen." Emergency situation. Corporate level. Now. Sarah was crying now. Actual tears streaming down her face as she realized the magnitude of what had just happened. But Damon still hadn't revealed his final card. What none of them knew was that this entire incident had been recorded by Meridian's corporate security team as part of standard acquisition due diligence. 3 board members were watching remotely. And the Federal Aviation Administration had specific regulations about customer discrimination that carried penalties in the millions. The real consequences were just beginning. 6:59 p.m. 2 minutes past departure. Damon's voice cut through the chaos with surgical precision. No anger. No emotion. Just facts delivered with the calm authority of someone who owned billion-dollar companies. Skyward Airlines reported $847 million in revenue last quarter, he began, his eyes moving from Jennifer to Sarah to Brad's still recording camera. Net profit margins of 12.3%, market capitalization of $1.9 billion as of market close today. The numbers landed like hammer blows. Brad's live stream chat was frantic with viewers Googling, fact-checking, confirming every figure in real time. Meridian Airlines Group was prepared to acquire Skyward at a 15% premium. That's $2.185 billion in cash and stock options. Damon paused, letting the magnitude sink in. This acquisition would affect 12,847 Skyward employees across 43 cities and 2.1 million frequent flyer members. Jennifer's radio wouldn't stop crackling. Voices from corporate headquarters, operations control, and what sounded like legal counsel were all demanding updates simultaneously. 7:00 p.m., 3 minutes past departure. "You have a choice to make, Ms. Walsh," Damon said, reading Jennifer's name tag with deliberate precision. "Handle this situation professionally right now, or explain to Skyward's CEO and board of directors why a $2.3 billion merger disappeared because your staff engaged in racial profiling." The words racial profiling echoed across the gate area. Other passengers who'd been watching turned to whisper among themselves. The woman in seat 2A was still recording everything, her phone capturing every word. Brad's viewer count had reached 5,600 people. The live stream was being shared across every social media platform. Someone had already created a Wikipedia page for Skyward Airlines discrimination incident. News outlets were picking up the story in real time. Jennifer grabbed her radio with shaking hands. "Operations, patch me through to CEO Robert Chen immediately. This is a Code 7 situation requiring immediate executive intervention." While she waited for the connection, Damon continued his presentation with the methodical precision of someone who'd destroyed competitors in boardrooms across the country. 7:01 p.m., 4 minutes past departure. Federal Department of Transportation Regulation 14 CFR Part 382 prohibits discrimination against passengers based on race or perceived economic status, Damon stated matter-of-factly. Violations carry fines ranging from $50,000 to $500,000 per incident. Sarah was hyperventilating now. Officer Martinez had completely backed away from the situation, recognizing that this was far beyond his jurisdiction. "Your employee," Damon gestured towards Sarah without looking at her, "violated multiple federal regulations. She conducted an unauthorized search of my personal belongings. She physically prevented me from accessing a seat I had legally purchased. She made public statements questioning the authenticity of my documentation without proper verification." Brad's phone battery was at 23%, but he kept filming. His chat was now moving too fast to read individual comments, but the tone had completely shifted. Viewers who'd been supporting the airline staff 20 minutes ago were now calling for boycotts. "The corporate liability exposure," Damon continued, "extends beyond federal fines. Civil rights violation lawsuits typically settle in the 7-figure range, but this incident was broadcast live to thousands of viewers, creating unprecedented documentation of discriminatory practices. 7:02 p.m., 5 minutes past departure. Jennifer's radio finally connected her to Skyward's corporate headquarters. The conversation lasted exactly 97 seconds. Her face cycled through every stage of professional panic. When she hung up, her voice was barely audible. "Mr. Washington, I've spoken with CEO Chen. He wants to speak with you directly. He's flying here immediately. He asked me to convey his personal apologies and assurance that this will be handled at the highest levels." But Damon wasn't finished. "Stock prices," he said simply. "Skyward closed at $47.23 today. By tomorrow morning, when this story breaks in financial news, your stock will drop at minimum 8 to 12%. That's roughly $200 million in market capitalization lost overnight." The math was brutal and accurate. Brad's viewers were already sharing screenshots on investing forums and financial Twitter accounts. "Meridian's legal team," Damon continued, checking his phone, "has been mobilized. They're reviewing the acquisition contract for moral turpitude clauses, which allow us to withdraw from deals when the target company demonstrates behavior inconsistent with our corporate values." 7:03 p.m., 6 minutes past departure. Damon's phone rang. He answered immediately. "Yes, Patricia, I'm fine. Yes, it's all been documented. I want a full legal review of the acquisition terms within 2 hours." He paused, listening. "No, don't pull out yet. I want to see how they handle the cleanup." He hung up and looked directly at Jennifer. "That was our chief legal counsel. She's been watching your live stream." He nodded toward Brad's camera. "Along with 3 members of our board of directors. They wanted to intervene 20 minutes ago. I told them to wait and see how Skyward Airlines actually handles customer service issues." The silence that followed was crushing. 7:04 p.m., 7 minutes past departure. "I've been CEO of Meridian for 8 years, Damon said quietly. "I've flown millions of miles on dozens of airlines around the world. I have never experienced customer service like what happened here today." He gestured toward the scattered remains of his belongings that Sarah had dumped on the floor. Personal photos of his family, prescription medications, confidential business documents, all treated like garbage by Skyward staff. "It makes me wonder," he continued, his voice carrying across the silent gate area, "how many other customers have experienced this kind of treatment? How many people who couldn't make a phone call and have a CEO fly here immediately? How many customers who don't have legal teams and board members watching?" Brad's live stream had reached 7,100 viewers. The story was trending on Twitter under #SkywardScandal. CNN's breaking news Twitter account had just posted about it. Financial news networks were preparing segments for the morning shows. Jennifer tried one more time to salvage the situation. "Mr. Washington, what would it take to resolve this matter and continue with the acquisition discussions?" Damon looked at her, then at Sarah, then directly into Brad's camera. "That," he said calmly, "depends entirely on what happens next." 7:05 p.m., 8 minutes past departure. The departure board still showed Flight 447 as delayed, but everyone in the gate area knew this was no longer about a flight schedule. This was about whether Skyward Airlines would survive the next 24 hours. 2 hours later, 9:17 p.m., Skyward Airlines CEO Robert Chen's private jet touched down at Chicago O'Hare with corporate legal counsel, the head of HR, and 3 board members aboard. The emergency response was unprecedented in the airline's 40-year history. By the time Chen arrived at the gate, Brad's live stream had been viewed over 50,000 times. The original video was spreading faster than Skyward's crisis management team could contain it. #SkywardScandal was trending nationally on Twitter. Sarah Mitchell had already been suspended pending a full investigation. Her employee badge was confiscated. Security footage from multiple angles was being reviewed by both corporate legal and federal investigators. Jennifer Walsh was immediately demoted from gate manager to customer service representative, pending mandatory sensitivity training and psychological evaluation. Her 15 years with the company couldn't protect her from what she'd allowed to happen under her supervision. Brad Henderson faced his own reckoning. His live stream had backfired spectacularly. Corporate harassment lawsuits were already being prepared. His employer, a Chicago-based consulting firm, had seen the viral video. By morning, he'd be looking for a new job. Within 72 hours, Damon chose transformation over destruction. Rather than walk away from the acquisition, he structured the deal with unprecedented accountability measures. The $2.3 billion merger proceeded, but with ironclad discrimination prevention clauses that became an industry model. The Dignity First customer service protocol was implemented across all Skyward operations within 30 days. Every employee, from ground crew to executive management, underwent mandatory bias recognition training developed by leading civil rights organizations. Skyward installed bias detection AI systems in their training programs. The technology analyzed customer service interactions for discriminatory language patterns, flagging incidents before they escalated. Random customer experience audits were conducted monthly by third-party civil rights organizations. The technology solution. A real-time discrimination reporting app was launched, allowing passengers to document and report discriminatory treatment immediately. Reports went directly to CEO-level management, bypassing local supervisors who might suppress complaints. Customer service representatives' performance bonuses were restructured. 25% of their compensation was now tied to inclusion metrics and discrimination-free service scores. Poor ratings in diversity treatment resulted in immediate additional training requirements. Financial accountability. Damon established a $50 million customer rights fund specifically for bias training and victim compensation. Any customer who experienced discrimination received immediate financial compensation plus free travel credits. Every Skyward employee, from baggage handlers to pilots, was required to complete quarterly bias workshops. The training wasn't optional corporate sensitivity sessions. It was comprehensive research-based education about unconscious bias in customer service. Personal transformations. Sarah Mitchell, after her suspension, voluntarily enrolled in a 6-month cultural competency program at Northwestern University. She worked with civil rights organizations, learning about the psychological impact of discrimination. When she returned to work, she became one of Skyward's most effective bias prevention trainers. Jennifer Walsh's demotion led to unexpected personal growth. She applied for and was accepted into the company's first diversity and inclusion liaison position. Her intimate understanding of how discrimination could escalate made her uniquely qualified to prevent future incidents. Officer Martinez, the TSA agent, testified in favor of new federal guidelines requiring law enforcement to receive additional discrimination training before responding to airline customer disputes. Systemic change. Within 6 months, the Federal Aviation Administration launched a comprehensive review of discrimination practices across all major airlines. Damon's testimony before the House Transportation Committee led to new federal requirements for bias reporting and prevention. The Washington Standards became industry terminology for customer service excellence, regardless of passenger appearance or perceived economic status. Airlines that failed to meet these standards faced federal investigation and potential loss of operating licenses. Customer discrimination incidents across the airline industry dropped 67% within the first year. Anonymous discrimination reporting systems were adopted by every major carrier. The Ripple Effect Harvard Business School created a case study titled The Skyward Incident: Leadership Through Crisis. The case examined how Damon's response turned a discriminatory attack into systematic industry reform. The University of Chicago's Civil Rights Law Center established the Washington Fellowship, providing full scholarships for students studying discrimination law and corporate accountability. Major corporations across multiple industries began adopting similar bias prevention measures. The Skyward model of accountability became a benchmark for diversity training programs. Measuring success. 1 year later, Skyward's customer satisfaction scores had increased 34%. Employee retention improved 28%. Stock price had recovered and exceeded pre-incident levels by 15%. Most importantly, customer complaints about discriminatory treatment had dropped from an average of 47 per month to fewer than 3. Each remaining incident was handled within 24 hours with executive-level intervention. The woman who had recorded everything from Seat 2A, Dr. Amanda Foster, became a consultant helping other airlines implement similar bias prevention programs. Her footage became training material for customer service representatives nationwide. The ultimate victory. Damon Washington proved that intelligent leadership could transform systemic discrimination into lasting institutional change. Instead of seeking revenge through lawsuits or public humiliation, he used his power to ensure no other customer would endure what he experienced that night. The annual Dignity in Travel Scholarship, funded by the settlement, provided full college scholarships for students from underrepresented communities studying hospitality, transportation, or civil rights law. By choosing systematic reform over individual punishment, Damon had created something far more valuable than revenge. He had changed an entire industry's approach to treating customers with dignity, regardless of how they looked or what others assumed they could afford. 1 year later, Damon Washington stood in the same gate area where his humiliation had been broadcast to thousands of viewers. Gate 12 at Chicago O'Hare now featured a small plaque, "Dignity in Travel, committed to excellence for every passenger." The transformation was complete, but the lessons had spread far beyond one airline. That night on Flight 447 had demonstrated something powerful. Intelligence defeats ignorance, but only when combined with the wisdom to choose systemic change over personal revenge. Damon could have destroyed careers, bankrupted individuals, or walked away from the deal entirely. Instead, he chose the harder path, creating lasting change that would protect countless future passengers from experiencing what he endured. Data and facts had proven more powerful than assumptions and bias. When confronted with evidence of Damon's true identity and corporate power, every person involved had been forced to confront their own prejudices. Quiet strength had achieved more than loud anger ever could. By remaining calm under pressure, documenting everything, and responding strategically rather than emotionally, Damon had turned a moment of personal attack into an opportunity for industry-wide transformation. The Meridian Skyward merger had become the gold standard for inclusive business practices. Other CEOs regularly contacted Damon for advice on implementing similar bias prevention measures in their companies. His quarterly Leadership Through Dignity seminars were attended by executives from Fortune 500 companies across multiple industries. The waiting list for his consulting services extended 18 months. The Washington standards were now taught in MBA programs at 12 major universities. Business schools used the Skyward incident as a masterclass in crisis leadership and turning adversity into systematic progress. The federal Passenger Bill of Rights had been expanded to include specific protections against discrimination based on appearance, perceived economic status, or racial profiling. Airlines that violated these standards faced immediate federal investigation and potential loss of operating licenses. Social media platforms had improved their harassment policies partly in response to how Brad's live stream had amplified discriminatory behavior. New algorithms detected and limited the spread of content that promoted bias or harassment. The ripple effects extended beyond transportation. Hotels, restaurants, retail stores, and other customer service industries had adopted similar bias prevention training programs. The Skyward model became synonymous with dignity in customer relations. Customer discrimination incidents that once went unreported were now documented and addressed. The anonymous reporting systems Damon had insisted upon gave voice to customers who previously had no recourse against discriminatory treatment. Monthly dignity audits were conducted at airports nationwide. Mystery shoppers from diverse backgrounds tested customer service quality across all major airlines. Results were published quarterly, creating competitive pressure for continuous improvement. The scholarship program had awarded full college tuition to 127 students from underrepresented communities. Many were now working in hospitality, transportation, and civil rights law, ensuring the next generation of leaders would prioritize dignity and inclusion. Damon's story proved that the most profound changes often come from the most painful moments. Discrimination and bias still existed, but they no longer went unchallenged or unaddressed. Every person had the power to choose how they responded to injustice. They could react with anger and seek revenge, or they could channel their experience into creating systems that protected others from similar treatment. The most effective leadership happened not through force or intimidation, but through strategic thinking, documented facts, and the wisdom to transform opposition into opportunity. Have you witnessed discrimination during travel? In restaurants? In retail stores? Your voice matters more than you realize. Share your story in the comments below. Every documented experience of bias or discrimination becomes evidence that drives the next wave of change. Your comment could be the catalyst that transforms an entire company's approach to customer service. If this story inspired you to believe that quiet strength can change the world, share it with someone who needs to see that dignity and intelligence triumph over ignorance and prejudice. Companies are watching. When stories like this go viral, corporate policies change overnight. Your sharing creates the social pressure that forces businesses to treat every customer with respect. The passengers who recorded that night at Gate 12 didn't just document discrimination. They became part of the solution. Their cameras held people accountable. Their voices demanded change. You have that same power. Subscribe to see more stories of people who turned their worst moments into systematic transformation. Because every act of discrimination defeated makes the world a little more just for everyone who comes after. The next time you see injustice, remember Damon Washington at Gate 12. Stay calm. Document everything. Choose systemic change over personal revenge. And never let anyone tell you that you don't belong where you've earned the right to be.